Hello, my name is Ethan Larson, and I'll be discussing transaction exposure as it relates to foreign exchange. I'll also discuss what you could do to protect yourself against this type of exposure. Transaction exposure it could be defined that it measures changes in the value of outstanding financial obligations, which usually is currency, that is incurred prior to a change in exchange rates, but not due to be settled until after the exchange rate changes. This type of exposure is a result of the use of accounting, whereas, for example, translation exposure is from the use of economics. There are three main indicators when transaction exposure actually arises. The first one is when there's a duration between the time agreement and the time of payment. The second is when exchange rates gain or lose value from the transaction itself. And third is whenever a company is committed to a foreign currency dominated transaction. When transaction exposure arises, there are some different ways to go ahead and measure it. The one would be borrowing or lending funds when repayment is made on foreign currency. The second could be purchasing or selling goods and or services when prices are in foreign currency. Third would be acquiring assets or incurring liabilities stated in foreign currency. And lastly, it would be unperformed foreign exchange forward contract. It is very important to know how to measure transaction exposure, because with that you're able to manage it and see how much risk you have out there within the foreign exchange. Transaction exposure in foreign currency exchange can be managed by hedging. Hedging is defined as using corresponding gains or losses in order to offset the value that is gained or lost in the currency exposure. There are several different hedging methods that will be explained further in depth on the next slide, but they are all have the same objective, as they are to protect against transaction risk by purchasing foreign currency through many different ways. But each of these ways, it's a way to fix the value of the currency contract in advance of its settlement. So the first hedging method is forward contract. And this contract is an informal agreement between two parties to buy or sell an asset, typically currency, at a specific price on a future date. At expiration, a forward contract can be settled either by physical delivery of cash or a currency settlement. A forward contract between two banks is nothing more than an agreement on a price, amount, and delivery date. Banks who enter a forward contract with a corporation may sometimes ask for margin or cash deposits, as this could be held as collateral for the exposure and the risks that they have, as currencies are fluctuating by the second. So another hedging method is a future contract, which is a legal agreement that is generally made on the trading floor of a future exchange, like New York Exchange, Chicago Exchange, London Exchange. And this is to buy or sell a particular commodity or financial instrument at a predetermined price at a specified time in the future. The ability to trade future contracts relies on clearing members, and these clearing members are usually large banks and financial services companies, such as Bank of America, Wells Fargo, all the big type corporations. The next hedging method is an options contract, and this is an agreement between a buyer and seller that gives the purchaser of the option the right to buy or sell a particular asset at a later date at an agreed upon price. Option contracts are often used in securities, commodities, and real estate transactions. They generally exist in one of the two following forms. The first form is call options, which give the beneficiary the right to require the grantors to sell or convey the property to them at the agreed price on exercise. The second form is put options, which give the beneficiary the right to require the grantor to buy or receive the property at the agreed price on exercise. The last hedging method is a money market hedge, which is a technique for hedging foreign exchange risks using the money market, the financial market in which highly liquid and short-term financial instruments like treasury bills, bank acceptances, and commercial paper are traded. The basic idea is to avoid future exchange rate uncertainty by making the exchange at today's spot rate instead. This is achieved by borrowing or depositing the foreign currency until the actual commercial transaction cash flow occurs. Since foreign exchange rates are derived from spot rates and money market instrument rates, the end result from hedging should be roughly the same by either method.